Good morning and welcome to Stockholm. Welcome to the Stockholm World Water Week. My name is Carrie Schneider. I'm a Senior Program Manager for the Shared Waters Partnership here at SEWE for a few months longer at least. For over a decade, as I've been working at SEWE, I've had the rather narrow focus of helping countries strengthen transboundary cooperation in regions where water is or could become a source of conflict. So it's easy for me to see the opportunities and connections, linkages between water and peace. I see those like a spider web, sometimes too late, and experiencing the unpleasant sensation of walking through a spider web with your face. But while it's become easy enough for me to see these connections, it feels like this conversation is fairly new actually for the water community. And if you think back, there's been, I think now over 20 convenings of the World Water Week. There have been over 21 celebrations of the World Water Day. This is the first time this connection, water for peace, has been made so explicit. So what took so long? I don't know. I can't explain that part, but I'd say better late than never. And I welcome everybody all the same to having this conversation with us. This event is being organized collaboratively with the Stockholm International Water Institute, the organization CAPNet, and the United Nations Development Program, who collectively collaborate on a long-running program called the Water Governance Facility. The Water Governance Facility for the past decade has sought to enhance the role and contribution of water governance towards the realization of a water-wise world. So today the session will explore needs, challenges, benefits towards cooperation, towards water and peace. We hope to hear about some of the mechanisms, the tools, and the resources that promote cooperation over shared waters within and across borders at different scales. And we'll be focusing on the experiences of Somalia, Uganda, and Iraq. Drawing from these experiences, the session will focus on setting a common understanding of both the shared and unique challenges faced by each country, and the steps that they see as necessary in order to overcome whatever obstacles or development ambitions they may have. We will also hear from colleagues at the UNDP, the UN Global Environment Facility, the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, the World Bank, and our colleagues at CAPNet, all representatives of the international community who work through partnership and represent opportunities for countries to work together and through their technical, financial, and political support. Before I go any further, I would like to introduce our first speaker for a keynote here, Dr. Mary Matthews. So please join me in welcoming Mary, who has been working in the water field since 1995, who trained as a social scientist with a strong background in ecology, and our water scribe and leader from UNDP today. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you so much. Is the microphone on? You guys can hear me? Okay, excellent, very good. Thank you all so much for being here today. I know that there's a lot of competition for great sessions, and Carrie, thanks so much for the warm introduction. I think your question about why are we just now paying attention to water for peace and security isn't because we haven't been thinking about it, it's because it's such a challenge to do it, to be honest, because we only have so much water in the world. One thing I like to remind people is 1,000 years ago, when the population of the planet was very, very small, we still had the amount of fresh water available on the surface of the planet that we have today with all the demands and all the uses. And we now are seeing those demands and uses increasing, but that supply not keeping up. We know that water has the power to foster peace or to provoke conflicts. When there's a lack of access to clean and reliable water, tensions rise. However, by cooperating and ensuring clean access to clean water for all, we build stability and sustainable development for local communities and transboundary basins around the world. We know we can do this. We know that the water-related impacts of climate change, 80% of climate change impacts are water-related, are worsening, and growing populations of humans are placing increasing demands on our finite common resources. As countries are developing, our demands on water are increasing while our supplies are not getting larger. Within many countries, people's access to safe drinking water, water for agriculture, water for sanitation, and water for ecosystems is very unequally distributed. This further highlights the social inequities and creates tensions between those with the wealth that comes from access to all of this water to the lack of access and the lack of social equity, and this creates tensions at the local level, the national level, and potentially at the global level. Within many countries, we know that there are tensions within and between the countries. For example, transboundary waters account for 60% of the world's freshwater flows. 153 countries have territories within at least one of the 310 transboundary basins and shared aquifers. If we think about that and wonder where the other countries are, generally those other countries are small island developing states, so they're not necessarily sharing that. I had to think about, like, well, what about the others? And it's the small island developing states that also have issues at the local level in terms of sharing water resources. A lack of transboundary cooperation on shared water resources pose a risk to the quality and the quantity of water supplies and therefore threatens social and international stability. Yet where we have agreements and cooperation between neighbors, where we have those institutions, studies are now showing a lower probability of conflicts escalating over water and over other resources. This is really critical in terms of building those supports. At UNDP, we address water challenges from the governance perspective. Working across all the sectors, we're mandated to work across all of the SDGs. This means taking a holistic view of institutional frameworks and systems that determine who gets the water, when they get it, how much, advocating for equitable and efficient use, and protecting water resources. We support multi-stakeholder, multi-sectoral processes and rights-based approaches at local, national, and regional levels. We know it works, and we know how to make a difference. We know that working together on water resources across borders and between communities and sectors will accelerate the process and the progress towards sustainable development goals, enhancing our food security, sustaining healthy livelihoods and ecosystems, helping to build resilience to climate change, contributing to disaster risk reduction, providing renewable energy sources, supporting cities and industries, and fostering regional integration and peace. Cooperation on water paves the way for cooperation on all of our shared challenges if we can get it right. And only by working together can we solve this. We must use water as a tool to create a more peaceful and prosperous world for all. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Mary. What she said, right? I think, as I said, having had the opportunity to work with this issue so much over the past 10 years, this has become sort of a second nature, and I'm really happy to be able to share, of course, that water does represent an entry point for peace, for cooperation, and regional integration. but it's something that we have to work for, and I think that sort of the steps taken in different parts of the world are really what illuminating for us. So without further ado, and without having to, that you have to take it from me, I would like to invite 3 country representatives. We'll begin with Dr. Kalist, who unfortunately was the only of our panelists able to make it to Stockholm, but we will be joined online by two other participants. Let me give them a brief introduction, please. So Dr. Kalist is a water resource specialist working with the Ministry of Water and Environment in Uganda for over 33 years now. He's the Commissioner for Water Resources Planning and Regulation with overall responsibility for ensuring sustainable, equitable utilization and protection of water resources in Uganda. We will also be joined online by Dr. Abdullahi Elmi, who has a PhD in water resources and environment management, particularly in shared river systems. He is a senior advisor for the Somali government on water resources development issues, and he is currently serving as the national coordinator of the Somali Water for Rural Resilience Project, named the Barako Project of the World Bank. And last but not least, we will be joined by engineer Zaid Abdul Ghaffar from Baghdad today. Zaid is a member of the Baghdad International Water Conference Secretariat, a member of the Preparatory Committee. He is active in the Administrative Deputy Minister's Office and the head of the office's Secretariat at the Ministry of Water and Resources. Dr. Kalist, thank you for joining us today. I think we'd begin with you if you'd honor us, so thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As you have been told, I come from Uganda. For those of you who don't know where Uganda is, we are in the eastern part of Africa, and we are happy to have been invited here to share our perspectives on how water can be an obstacle, a catalyst for peace. Uganda, we have a lot of water, yet we cry over water. We are faced with a number of challenges. Some of the challenges are related to development, some of the challenges are related to the management of water resources. According to our national water policy, first priority provision of water is water for drinking, and our constitution is clear that access to safe drinking water is a fundamental human right. But access to safe water actually has stagnated at 67% in rural areas and 72% in urban areas. So we actually have that challenge. We also have a challenge of sanitation. Most of the disease burden in Uganda is related to sanitation, either to water or water-related or waterborne diseases. And of course, the disease burden affecting the young children is most times related to water. In Uganda, access to energy is basically based on hydropower. And in the rural areas, people are depending on fuel wood. So we're having a lot of degradation of the environment because of limited access to power. But in the dry season, hydropower generation is actually at the lowest because our environment is highly degraded. So we continue to have energy insecurity. In terms of food, we are depending largely on rain-fed agriculture, and now we are moving into irrigation. And of course, all of this will put pressure on water resources. And our landscapes are highly degraded. When it rains, the rain comes with a lot of silt. Water bodies are highly silted up, and we find that the storage capacity is reduced, and we are having a lot of flooding in many areas. And of course, Uganda hosts a big population of refugees from South Sudan and DR Congo. So we are having a challenge of providing services to the refugees, but also we are having people being displaced because of water-related disasters. So we are having migration from one part to another, and this leads conflicts and competition over water resources. So we continue to see in some places too little water, resulting in drought, too much water, resulting in floods, too dirty water, resulting in pollution, and all these challenges are being made worse by our high population growth rate, environmental degradation, climate change, and limited institutional and human capacity. And of course, we do note that if these challenges are not addressed, Of course, we shall have insecurity, we shall have conflicts, but if these challenges are addressed, then we harmonize the different uses and ensure that we live in harmony, and also recognizing that water actually contributes almost all the SDGs. So once we don't have access to sustainable provision of water resources, then we have a challenge in meeting our SDGs. But for Uganda, our water resources are actually transboundary. 98% of Uganda's water resources are part of the Nile. Uganda is both a downstream country and upstream country. With respect to Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi, Uganda is downstream. So we are always concerned about how we relate with our upstream neighbors. But with respect to South Sudan, Sudan, and Egypt, we are upstream. So our position is a bit unique, and sometimes we are misunderstood. At one time, we are upstream, at another time, we are downstream. And because of that, of course, we try to bring the countries within the Nile to work together. But 69% of water resources actually comes from outside our borders. So if we don't cooperate with other countries, then we have a challenge. So for us, cooperation over shared water resources is not an option, but a must. And we have to work with the other countries and ensure that these resources are developed and managed collaboratively for the benefit of all the states. And once we achieve that, then we shall be promoting peace and security. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khalid. Hopefully, our online participants will be able to join us now. So I would like to connect first, if possible, Engineer Zaid, and hopefully you can share with us how water manifests as an obstacle or catalyst for peace in Iraq. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Kerry, very much. So in a brief start, ladies and gentlemen, our friends and partners, good morning, and many thanks for this opportunity to gather here in Stockholm. Lucky me, I managed to join virtually to discuss the most relevant water key issues in our countries, which I believe that they are pretty much similar to other countries' situations. Before I start, I would like to say very much thanks to Kerry, Alice, and Tolin for their efforts to bring us all here in this important session. Actually, when water allocations issues among riparian countries emerged in light of the increasing demand on this vital source, a debate has emerged regarding the fear from transforming water from a tool of peace and prosperity to a tool of war and conflict. This vital source has a very strong bond with the human lives. To that extent, the United Nations has worked on different levels to legislate and form the international water law based on international customs and conventions, as well as riparian countries' experience and experiments, to forming the law with efforts and difficulties. Actually, Iraq is a downstream country, sharing its both rivers' water, Tigris and Euphrates, with Turkey, Syria, and Iran, is working on side by side with the United Nations and the international community to have its historical rights in the water allocations from its two main rivers, Tigris and Euphrates. As a consequence, the Iraqi Ministry of Water Resources takes its responsibility to work on preserving continuous dialogue with its neighbors. The ministry has managed to build strong partnerships with the international community to strengthen its capabilities in terms of water diplomacy and negotiations. I will list in a very short statements the major work Iraq that has been accomplished with different international organizations. Firstly, the Swedish government has allocated a grant of $6 million to the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, SIDA, to be spent over a period of 5 years, starting in 2014, ending in 2018, to implement a steady aim to enhance cooperation between the participating countries in the two basins, Iraq, Turkey, Syria, and Iran, under the title of Cooperation Program in the Tigris and Euphrates River Basins, the SPET program. With the participation of 4 countries, the study estimates the economic values of different water uses and their spatial distributions in the two basins, which helps organize water management and identify alternatives for water uses and allocations options in competitive uses. In light of this, a series of spatially distributed development options are identified that included irrigated agriculture, hydropower, and ecosystem services, which lately be used as a tool for dialogue with a group of experts from the countries under the agreement between representatives of Iraq, Turkey, Syria, and Iran, who attended the World Water Week conference in 2010 and also was participated by the Swedish Agency for Development Cooperation, SIDA. The agency has assigned Stockholm International Water Institute, SIWI, to sponsor the study, which cooperated with the International Center for Biosaline Agriculture in Dubai, ICBA, and experts from University of Beirut, the American University of Beirut, Swedish Environmental Institute, Swedish Hydrological and Meteorological Institute, International Center for Agriculture Research in Dry Areas. The study on integrated and sustainable water resources management of Tigris and Euphrates basins aimed to enhancing dialogue and building trust between participating parties on water management in the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, raising awareness and encouraging countries to exchange information and build trust between them, reducing the gap in technical capabilities among experts from participating countries, building integrated mathematical programs for water management in both rivers. On different level, the UNDP Iraq, in cooperation with Geneva Water Hub, organized several workshops under the Catholic Climate Actions in Iraq, which was supported by United Kingdom and Canada. These workshops focused on capacity building of the Iraq water negotiators. They have been concluded main three results to be roadmap for the water negotiations in Iraq. Also, UNDP, in collaboration with Geneva Water Hub, conducted a very important study titled Towards Climate Resilient Transboundary Water Arrangements. The study was a multidisciplinary study. Furthermore, the UNDP Iraq contributed to the 4th Baghdad International Water Conference, organized and couple of sessions and supported the conference financially. The World Bank in Iraq, on a different level as well, also played a key role in implementing different kinds of water facilities in collaboration with the Iraqi Ministry of Water Resources, targeting the most vulnerable territories in the country. With the aid of the World Bank, the ministry has been able to construct many water structures in different Iraqi governorates. I have finished my speech, and I would like here to, in a few sentences, to emphasize the importance of cooperation among different countries. This helps to not only raising the awareness of the countries, but also is building the capacity and the capability of the countries and experts in terms of water diplomacy and in terms of preventing water conflicts and bringing peace to the globe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Saeed. I'm not sure if you're here in the room, but you just received ovation.
Thank you so much.
Next, if we can be joined by Dr. Abdullahi Elmi. Elmi, again, is representing the federal government of Somalia and will be speaking on behalf of the Ministry of Energy and Water Resources, who shares their apologies for not being able to join us today in person. Is Elmi online? The floor is yours, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. Do you hear me, Kerry?
We hear you well.
Yes, thank you very much. I can turn on my camera in case could be seen here. Thank you on inviting me to this very important meeting and discussion on collaborative efforts on transboundary water issues. Just to give you a very brief background of the role of the Juba and Shabelle river basins of Somalia. Somalia has two major river basins, which are very much dependent on our agricultural production And so Somalia is the downstream and Ethiopia is upstream. And some part of that basin of Juba, Kenya is also upstream. So Somalia is very much dependent on these two river basins. The water that we get outside our border is more than 90% of the water comes from Ethiopian highlands. So Somalia has been using these two river basins since our independence and have been very much dependent on it. But for the last 10 years, Somalia has had a very difficult crisis of socio-political crisis. But for the last 2 decades, Somalia was recovering from these civil wars and building institutions and also some of the infrastructures as well. So, but Somalia currently is developing, it is a legal and institutional framework for the water sector. And we have a national water strategy. We have also developed some basic policy documents for the sector. But the role of these two rivers in our economy, not only the agricultural production, but also the social stability and the environmental restoration and ecological management has been very important as the time goes and the population grows, the climate change prevails, the food insecurity increases, as well as the water scarcity. So these two river basins are the lifelines for so many million people of Somalis, mainly in the downstream and areas of Somalia. But also these rivers are also being used the production from there for the whole nation. So it's a national issues for us. And Somalia has always been willing to collaborate with upstream countries, particularly with Ethiopia, where these two rivers originate. Somalia has shown all the time this collaboration is not only an option for us, but also it's a compulsory to us. We have tried to reach out and see if that collaboration works. But unfortunately, it was not easy for Somalia to see this happen for the last, particularly for the last 10 years. So Somalia has been trying to reach out upstream and Riberian of Ethiopia to collaborate at least on technical issues. But this was not easy. And as the world knows that the beginning of this year, Ethiopia entered and according to the Somali government, illegal MOU, memorandum of understanding, to have access to the sea, the Red Sea, and have that access. And that access also demands to have access to the land as well, which the Somali government has strongly condemned it and refused it, and got a support from the international community that is against the territorial integrity and the political independence of the Somali Republic. So this has put more fuel on this fire of lack of cooperation over the shared river basins of Juba and Shabelle. So as it seems right now, and the collaboration of the Juba and Shabelle River seems to be very difficult, particularly when this MOU came as a reality, and which the Somali government is still refusing and condemning. So it seems that the future of the collaboration of the Juba and Shabelle River basins become very much linked to the recognition of the Somali territorial and political independence by the upstream country of Ethiopia, which the Somali government has repeatedly since last week was saying that until Ethiopia recognizes Somalia as an independent and with integrity, territorial integrity and political independence, it will be difficulty for collaboration of any other issues. But although the Somali government says that commercial treatment to access to the sea is possible, but not to ownership of the sea or linking with this land. So I do see, as I am expert in this sector for the last 25 years, the hope to collaborate over the shared river basins of the Horn of Africa, particularly Juba and Shabelle river basins, is getting more difficulty and era. But I do see if there is a will, there is always a way to collaborate because of the need for these shared river basins, and it is linked water resources to be developed and shared in transboundary way, and see the benefits that can be developed and shared between the Liberian states. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elmi. Well, we'll keep hope alive with you for the possibility of cooperation over the Juba and Shabelle rivers. But thank you for the reminder how one issue, a political issue, can completely derail cooperation over water resources. Hopefully there's a way around this, and you know you have our support, Dr. Elmi. Thank you to all of the country representatives so far. I think this was a great way to launch and to hear the perspectives from different parts of the world, how water is seen as a potential catalyst for peace and cooperation, and how it can also be a hurdle. There's plenty of hurdles, aren't there? Next, I would like to hear and welcome our panel, our second panel of development partners and implementing agencies. These are all organizations who work in different capacities to strengthen water resource management, to strengthen water development, and to support countries in different ways. And so now I would like to welcome up to the stage Ms. Astrid Hillers from the GEF. I'm going to start introducing you as you come, so just please walk up. Just join me up here once I am able to organize. So Astrid is coordinating the Global Environment Facilities work on international waters in Africa and on surface and groundwater in Asia. She's engaged in several cross-sectoral themes, including water security, addressing the nexus of water, food, land, energy, and ecosystems in cooperation processes and curbing chemicals from fashion and agricultural supply chain. Thank you for joining us. Next, can I welcome on stage Mary Matthews, Dr. Mary Matthews again from UNDP. We've already introduced Ms. Maria Vink, please. Maria Vink is a senior program specialist for water security at SIDA. Maria has worked in different aspects of water management and development cooperation for almost 3 decades. And has substantive experience of support to multilateral cooperation initiatives, policy development, and facilitation of stakeholder dialogues. Last but not least, I would like to, no, not last actually, second to last but not least, Dr. Christina Lieb. Christina works as Senior Counsel at the Environment and International Law Department of the World Bank, where she advises on water law and public international law with the bank's policies on projects on international waterways. Now, last but not least, Dr. Temba Gumbo. Temba has over 35 years working experience in the water sector, spanning from being a practicing engineer, trainer, and researcher, network manager, and in water finance. Currently, he's the director of CapNet, an international network committed to capacity development and sustainable water management. Welcome, thank you all for joining me. Are we comfortable here? Is this gonna work?
Yeah.
Leave enough space?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, we're friendly.
Okay.
Hands on, you know.
You can scoot this way as needed. But so we will have 2 rounds of questions, basically 1 response per panelist. And the first is looking to expose a bit of how your organizations support countries like Somalia, Iraq, and Uganda. You don't have to focus specifically on those countries, but how your organizations are helping countries overcome challenges or build resilience where water may be a catalyst for peace and cooperation. And if I can begin with reflections from Ms. Hillers, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kerry. Good morning, everybody else. So my name is Astrid Hiller from the GEF. So what is the GEF? In case you haven't heard, it's a global environment facility. It's a facility, it's a mechanism for many of the multilateral environmental agreements, but it also has a window on international waters, which, has not only one agreement behind it. So the GEF International Waters window was actually created on bringing together countries to provide grant resources and the freedom and the process support for countries to come together and understand their shared water system together and just build trust among each other, come to exchange information, bottom-up process, support bottom-up processes also within the countries to get stakeholders in there, to have an overview of what's happening in the countries, what are my priorities, and then put it regionally together in what sometimes we call it transboundary diagnostic, some others call the State of the Basin report. It doesn't matter what you call it, but it is about the process of getting NGOs and practitioners in different sectors in each of the countries together, and then overlaying on a regional base what are the pressures, what could be opportunities, what could we prioritize, and building a vision of what could cooperation bring us, where are the benefits for each of the countries, and are there any that everybody can see over time to bring this together. The GF, therefore, also sometimes, if it's early cooperation processes, supporting the countries to maybe go to other basins and learn. How's an institution set up to support these priorities? Can we do the same in our basins in order to be better off? And then building an action program behind it and prioritize investments, which of course need to bring in different investors, because some of them are really infrastructure for food security, for energy security. I get the yellow card. Okay, I'll make it shorter. But these are long-term processes, so it takes a long time, right? So the GF works in a series of projects on the regional scale. Dr. Takalis could talk about it. So, for example, Uganda has been over the years in many of those regional programs. On the Lake Victoria, way back, we had a program that had all of the Nile countries in there on environmental issues. We're working together also on fisheries, we're together with Congo. We have a groundwater project with Kenya there. And so it brings regional priorities together, but also on the local scale. And I will talk about the local scale probably later, because the GF supports countries, and countries have allocations to work on a national scale on the more local issues of land degradation and food security and adaptation.
Thank you so much. Well, so cooperation is embedded in GEF processes from planning to implementation. The United Nations Development Programs is one of the primary implementing partners of the GEF. So Mary, maybe you can explain to us all next how your organization works in cooperation with GEF, I'm sure, and implements these programs in support of water and peace.
Absolutely. And thank you, Astrid, for setting things up. I think one of the things, if you have not known, over the many years, UNDP and GEF have been very close partners for implementing projects, the GEF International Waters projects, with the transboundary diagnostic analysis approach, with State of the Basin reports and so forth, and working with the countries to really foster the institutional ability of these countries to be able to meet their commitments under the strategic action programs that are developed by GEF International Waters or within the GEF International Waters frameworks. But we're not just working, and we do that a lot, and we really work very closely and have a great long-term partnership because we have offices on the ground in many, if not most of the countries. We also are able to work with our country offices to respond to the needs of the governments. So when there's a need for capacity development, when there's a need for institutional reform or institutional restructuring, or even institutional guidance on how do you get the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Ecology really working together with Ministry of Energy and Municipal Resources and Urban Development. Because UNDP is set up to work with all of the different sectors, we're actually able to bring those together. And we do that at the local level as well as the national level, as well as the transboundary level, often bringing together stakeholders, water management stakeholders, who otherwise would not necessarily know each other, and being able to build those relationships and fill those gaps, whether it is groundwater in Uganda or Somalia, or helping to bring water to the forefront in Iraq is a very critical issue that has to be addressed at the national as well as the transboundary level. UNDP is active and on the ground and committed to doing that. And thank you very much to CETA for giving us some support in doing that, because it's awesome to have that. Thank you. Over.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mary. I guess we're going to take a step backwards. Next, we'll hear from CETA. And so CETA, of course, as an agency that is primarily a development partner and donor, funds into projects of the GEF and of UNDP. So perhaps you could share with us how CETA, from that sort of 20,000-foot view, supports water for peace in these different parts of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Kerry. Yes, we're trying to stepping down from that 20,000-foot view into reality as well, and trying to be at all levels, which can be challenging, but it's really helpful to have the country representatives here reminding us of those important challenges and opportunities at country level. I think this is really key. CETA supports several initiatives related to water and conflict prevention and water and peace. Our development cooperation is guided by strategies that is decided by the Swedish government. And those strategies, they exist both at country level, at regional level, but also at the thematic level. So the link between water and conflict is supported both from a thematic entry point of environment and climate, but also from an entry point of peace and conflict prevention. So based on our global strategy on environment and climate, we support most of you that are on stage today, UNDP, global, the World Bank, and all those countries' initiative. We support CV, especially the Water Governance Facility and the Shared Waters Partnership. That has been really key. I also want to mention the Women in Water Diplomacy initiative that started in the Nile Basin and then have grown globally as an important initiative. Our current support to UNDP, that Mary mentioned already, it includes a water component, but it also includes a component of climate security that is focusing on trainings in understanding the links between climate and security. Our support to the World Bank includes the Global Water Security and Sanitation Partnership. It includes SIVA, and of course the new facility on transboundary cooperation. And we also support CAPNet through Global Water Partnership. But I also want to mention some initiatives that are supported through our global strategy on peace and conflict prevention. Because there we support, for example, the Center for Humanitarian Dialogue that has facilitated peace building at local level in Nigeria. And we also support International Alert, which is part of the consortium of water, peace and security. And this initiative aims to identify and address water-related security risks through a global early warning system. And of course, I also need to mention EcoPeace that are doing important work in the Middle East. So the guiding principles for our support is our multidimensional approach to poverty. So when deciding on different initiatives, we carry out a multidimensional poverty analysis, and we integrate as many perspectives as possible. This includes perspectives of conflict prevention, vulnerability, and the risks related to environment and climate. So all those initiatives are driven by knowledge generation, trust building, facilitation of dialogues, and stakeholder engagement. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria. Next, Dr. Temba, your organization, Cabinet, is a bit different from the other organizations represented here on stage, but nevertheless, as an implementing partner for a lot of these projects, your organization is also working closely with either the countries who are represented here today or thematically through your work with IWRM. So please share with us, the floor is yours. How does your organization support countries like these, where water can be a catalyst for peace and cooperation?
Thank you, Kerry. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us in this panel. I'm coming in from Cabinet, of course, where our main mandate is capacity development and water education. Our dictum is water knowledge for all, and looking at both human and also institutional capacities. I want to just start off by saying investment in capacity development is a no-regret investment, as we have seen, and it has been demonstrated in certain other reports, like, for example, the Conference Board of Canada, which has shown that, there are not only private benefits, but there are social benefits, fiscal benefits, and also there are benefits which are related to specifically to water cooperation and peace building. Of course, as you've said, Kerry, we operate also on the ground. We work with 23 geographic networks, and of which some of them are in the 3 focal countries that we've been working on this year. Maybe starting off with Uganda, with Calist here. We have our network, which is Nile IWNet, where we've already put up an implementation plan for capacity development and water education. And as we speak now, there's training ongoing on online learning and design. And we've also offered Uganda the use to adopt the virtual campus of Cabinet as their own, so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel. In Iraq, we work very closely with our affiliated network, again on the ground, which is UN ESQA, which hosts AWARENET, where we are conducting a needs assessment for capacity development and water education. This is to ensure that the capacity development and water education is not supply driven, but it's also demand. So there's a need to establish a clear competency matrix and also to respond to the needs on the ground. In Somalia, we've assisted Somalia in establishing its master's program, which is ongoing. And they've had the first cohort of students which are in place, which has been quite a huge achievement, I think, at the University of Mogadishu in Somalia. And we are also exploring opportunities for regional water education and capacity building, which we believe also, it adds onto the enhancing cooperation and peace. Still, again, in Somalia, we have a project which is ongoing and together with the World Bank, which is...
But we need to expedite this last point here.
Which is the groundwater for resilience, working also with UNDP Borderlands project. Finally, I would like to say, the needs are huge on the ground. And what we want to achieve is also to try and bridge the digital divide and ensure that, e-learning and also AI, which will have a profound impact in what we do, is also embedded in our work and moving forward. So with that, thank you very much for now.
Thank you so much, Temba. Okay, we have one more reflection for this round, and so if I could welcome Christina. The World Bank is engaged in a lot of different programs, of course, in the member states that we've invited here today, but all around the world. So please share with us some of your insights.
Sure, and since you didn't give Tam a lot of time on the groundwater for resilience, I'll speak more to that, I think. Thank you, good afternoon, and thanks for the invitation. As you all know, the World Bank engages as a development bank, but also as a development institution, so we provide credit grants and technical assistance for governments for the projects that they propose and they plan. And I want to focus really sort of on multiple tools that we have used, and we have worked with the government of Ethiopia, of Somalia, but also Ethiopia and Kenya on groundwater management. So one of the engagements, and this has already been mentioned by Mr. Abdullahi, is the rural water supply project, Biole projects, where we worked a lot with the Somali government on making sure there is water supply for the communities in arid and semi-arid lands. The Horn of Africa has a lot of groundwater resources that are not yet well understood. So a lot of it is about how to manage these resources, but also how to get more data. So on the community level, and that's also an important aspect for Water and Peace, because a lot of the grievances also happen at the community level. At the community level, for instance, one of the mechanisms is really do community-based planning on groundwater use. And the system is like one question asked to the community. This is the water that you have. We have assessed this now. We have the data. How do you want to use it? And then have a multi-stakeholder dialogue and seeing how the community wants to manage the water and help them use the water and prioritize, because as Mary, you mentioned at the beginning, we are more people on the planet, but the water resource is still limited, so we need to see how to manage that. And then, sort of in addition to that model, we did a lot of studies. We worked. This model works well. We then sort of increased support to the region and developed this Groundwater for Resilience program, which is a regional multi-phase programmatic approach program. So how does that work? Those programs are designed already in multiple stages to take a long programmatic approach, and they have in each phase both country projects but also a regional component. And this one has country projects in Ethiopia, Somalia, and Kenya on groundwater management, and a regional component with IGAD to make sure that there's also a regional organization that can provide the technical assistance, but also the information that countries need to manage shared groundwater resources. And as the first stage, as I said, it's sort of a multi-phase approach. As the first stage of this project, the investments are again focused on community, small-scale groundwater investments, but also in the borderlands, so that there is also sort of an entry point into assessing the shared groundwater resources together through these national projects and the regional components. And then this builds up through multiple phases, and each phase is linked through a learning agenda. So there's annual learning reports that then feed into the design of the next phases of the program. And I stop here because I'm running out of time.
Yes.
But I'm also happy to have bilateral conversations afterwards on it.
Well, thank you so much to all of our panelists, and thank you so much for highlighting these connections between water and peace. A lot of the examples are technical. A lot of our work is technical. Managing water is inherently a technical thing. So drawing out those connections certainly aren't always easy, but I think it helps us learn and evolve this conversation specifically. If we could go through, we're going to have to do kind of a lightning round of second questions in order to leave enough time for our country representatives to follow up. But if this first question was a bit more looking at what's going on now, if I could ask all of the organizations present to just quickly reflect on what opportunities you see moving forward. These could be programs or areas where your organizations are developing this connectivity between Water for Peace better, and hopefully you can leave us all with a bit of hope moving forward. I'll begin again with you, Astrid. Thank you.
Thank you. It's always a challenging thing to look at Water for Peace, but the GF has for 30 years supported, these cross-country projects and programs, and they're long-term. And for countries to come together, it has stages, it goes back and goes forth, there's differences. So there's a steady support from the GF on international waters. But that also means the countries have to agree. It's country-driven, right? Countries have to request resources, and if it's not, then if not everybody comes on board there. There are resources, though, to help countries internally when it comes to, groundwater, rangeland management, and there's several programs in Somalia, and there are some in Iraq, and Uganda, of course, has the gamut from regional to local. There are resources for land degradation, for biodiversity, for climate change adaptation, allocated to each country. So when you're looking at groundwater resources and how can it be locally managed, you can access these resources. So, for example, these STAR resources, which is some formula, and somebody found a really smart acronym which I can't repeat. There's about $6 million for Iraq, there's about 16 for Somalia, and there's about 11 in this round of the GF for Uganda. And then there's under the Least Developed Countries Fund on the connection of climate and land and water. There are 4 pillars in there. Water is one of them, on the request of the countries, under the Least Developed Country Funds for Adaptation, because it is so essential for development, because it supports food security in the countries. And as we all know, climate change is first felt through insecurity on water on many countries on the ground level. Too much water, too little water, supporting solar pumping and all of that. So there is a lot that can be done. I'm talking from the global perspective, and luckily we have Christina and Mary here. There are 18 agencies that work, and the countries have the choice to work with them. And there's a gamut from IFA to UNFAO and so forth. So, including also some of the larger NGOs. And so it's the country's choice with whom to work, and happy to discuss afterwards and make connections for the country representatives.
Thank you so much. UNDP is going to be helping the World How moving forward.
Oh, we got this figured out, or we like to think we do. Okay, a couple of things moving closer so you guys can actually hear me. With regards to moving forward, UNDP's water approach focuses on water for nature, making sure ecosystems that provide the water have the water they need to thrive, water for resilience, drought resilience, climate resilience, all of the resilience, and then, of course, water for peace and security, which is a critical aspect of the work we do, and often these actually will overlap. In terms of what we have coming forward, within UNDP and across these, we've managed to identify all of the water projects in UNDP over the last 5 years or so, and we've come up with a database that spans every single area UNDP works in, which is actually really exciting. And we've got about 500 water-focused projects. We've got about 900 water-related projects, meaning that they're like one component related to water. Not only have we pulled all these together, and it's the water-focused are about $2.85 billion in value. Water-related expands up to about $8.11 billion. So a large portion of the work UNDP is doing is actually related to water. But we didn't do just this just as a bean or a water drop counting exercise. We actually did this because we knew that we had a lot of really good experiences that weren't getting translated. They would happen in one place, but they wouldn't necessarily get transplanted somewhere else. Or maybe they would, but it wouldn't work. And so what we've done is we're in the process right now with, again, thanks to CETA, developing the Water Solutions Catalog, which will enable a government counterpart and a UNDP country office to sit down together, go through a very quick decision tree, and with AI assistance that doesn't use a lot of water, come up with a program of options that can then be adapted to the specific country based on the best practices that are already proven. And so we're in the process of developing that. It will be launched at the desertification COP in Riyadh in December, and we're really excited. And so stay tuned, and we're looking forward to getting that up and moving and off the ground. Over.
Thank you so much. If we can move on to Maria and hear about CETA's plans moving forward. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. As I mentioned earlier, our development cooperation is steered by the Swedish government, and the political priorities change over time, and sometimes it's difficult to foresee the future, but we know for sure that the funding for development cooperation is not increasing, while overall instability is increasing, which really means that we need to look into innovative financing mechanisms. We need to look at the skills, the capacity and financial resources of the private sector, and this is a priority by the Swedish government. So we need to form new alliances where we can harness the synergies and partnership. And we are looking into opportunities of closer partnerships with the private sector and innovative financing. Another aspect that is more and more emphasized is concrete, tangible results on the ground. And this has always been a focus, but it's more and more emphasized. And here, I think really when we talk about water and peace building and water and conflict, we need to look at concrete results. Even though we know those processes are really, really long-term, we have to have concrete results, short-term results. And I think we heard something yesterday for you, those who are listening to that session, on the examples from the Pungwe River that is shared between Zimbabwe and Mozambique. And I think this was an excellent example of how small-scale community irrigation projects that could be showed to politicians at high level actually increase the political will of cooperation. So I think keep that in mind, the tangible results, and include those elements of trust building, knowledge generation as well for the longer term cooperation. I also want to emphasize that different organizations, different financiers have specific niche and comparative advantage. So in that sense, the bilateral cooperation might be more directly politically steered and therefore more unpredictable and sometimes difficult to engage over a very long time. So there the multilaterals might be a better option. I also want to emphasize the collaboration between those peace-building initiatives I mentioned earlier, International Alert and Center for Humanitarian Dialogue, and really try to learn from each other and capture each other and have that coordination at country level, because we might not be aware of each other's initiative. And here I think we can learn a lot from each other's and really strengthen that collaboration on the ground. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Temba, I'm looking at you, I'm worried. You're basically a professor, so it's in your blood to run over time. We need to be short here, but please share with us what Cabinet has in hopes for the future and how you may be working towards strengthening these countries.
Yeah, thank you. I'll try to be brief. In fact, I just want to underscore 3 points here. So I'll be done in less than the time that have been allocated. What is key is from Cabinet perspective is that we need to innovate also the way we do our business. And one of the things which we are proud about is the acceptance of e-learning as an alternative or not as a substitute to face-to-face learning. And one of the things which we've also established in the past few years is that the outreach is much more better under maybe e-learning, and also it does accelerate delivery, and maybe also looking beyond the SDG framework. So we project beyond that. The second thing is what is important, I think, as an ingredient, is to also foster training of the trainers and also peer-to-peer learning. That is quite important for us. And lastly, is to also strengthen our networks and also the local institutions, which I think builds into the sustainability of it. And also looking at the full spectrum in terms of our target audience, not only water professionals, but the the practitioners, schools, and also, the communities, and to ensure that there's, knowledge, water knowledge is not only in a silo, but also is interdisciplinary and also transdisciplinary, such that we reach out also to other sectors. So with that, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Well done, Dr. Tamba. The World Bank, last but not least, they always have something big around the corner.
Yeah, no, let me try to be brief as well. As already mentioned, and you mentioned it, Maria, the World Bank has several multi-trust fund development programs, and those we have realized are really sort of one of the most successful mechanisms because we can grant finance, technical assistance, and capacity building where it's needed. So if we go back to the Groundwater for Resilience program, this came out, the catalyst project for this one was actually a grant to IGAD to build groundwater capacity. And that was a Cooperation for International Waters in Africa, the CIVA program, co-financed by CEDA as well as other partners. So in addition, but we don't have these regional focus programs like CIVA in every region. We have one in Central Asia, which is the Central Asia Water Energy Development Program. We used to have one in South Asia, the South Asia Water Initiative, but we don't have it for every region. So what we're doing now, or what we have set up now, is a global facility for cooperation on transboundary waters to be complementary, but also gap filling in regions where we don't have regional programs already, so that we, for instance, also can deliver technical assistance capacity building in Iraq, in Middle East, North Africa, more generally, Latin America, where we don't have this program. So that I'll stop here. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask everybody to join me in a round of applause for the panelists. Please thank them for their insights as you take your seats in the audience. Thank you. You guys can take your seats. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now I would like to ask Dr. Kallis to rejoin me on stage one more time. We'd like to hear some reflections back from the country representatives. Also looking forward, hearing where your hopes lie as a representative from Uganda when it comes to water for peace. Where do the hopes lie? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good to hear from our partners. Indeed, there are many opportunities that exist at the national level and the transboundary level. Within Uganda, for example, we have realized that we need to strengthen partnerships and collaboration, and we are doing our water work following a basin or a catchment. And within that arrangement, we are bringing stakeholders that traditionally have not been engaging. Now we reach out the private sector, the civil society, the cultural institutions, the religious institutions, the other government agencies, and we are doing it as close as possible to the people. And through that, we are leveraging on available resources and capacities, but we're also trying to innovate, trying to look at innovative financing, for example, and we do realize that we can mobilize resources in kind without necessarily getting cash. So we are getting these partners contribute, and we are creating stakeholder coordination and collaboration structures so that the stakeholders can continue to engage and also be able to address issues on the ground. Climate change is real and everybody is concerned about climate change, so we are looking at it as an opportunity. We are getting people to respond. When we faced with climate change issues, then they respond, we bring them on board, but we're also looking at it as an opportunity to mobilize resources from within the government and across the board. And we have a number of climate resilience and adaptation projects funded by GEF, for example, Adaptation Fund, Green Climate Fund, and also bilateral partners. At the transboundary level, again, as has been mentioned, we are realizing that we need to move closer to the people so that we get cooperation on the ground within the framework of the Nile Basin Initiative and the Lake Victoria Basin Commission and IGAD. We have programs that actually we're implementing bilaterally between, for example, Uganda and Kenya. We have cooperation on the ground where the people are seeing the benefits of cooperation. We have developed programs where we can work together and ensure that we benefit. Between Uganda and DRC, again, as Astrid mentioned, we have a program funded by GEF, the African Development Bank, through the Nile Basin Initiative, with Sudan, South Sudan, for example, with Tanzania. Again, we have programs around Lake Victoria. And broadly, we have programs that are covering the whole basin. Right now, I've realized that working together will enable us to address challenges. As I speak now, whenever we have, for example, a challenge with flooding, the countries come together and do forecasts together and be able to advise, and there we are sharing data and information. We do realize that by working together, we are helping each other to take advantage of available capacities, but also we are strengthening collaboration and cooperation. In terms of capacity building, again, Uganda has actually been hosting for the last 4 years a Pan-Africa training on international water law and policy, funded by a number of partners and attended by people from different parts of Africa. Again, we are helping to build capacity in water diplomacy, negotiation skills, and we feel that these ones will help us to move forward. And of course, again, we are looking at leveraging on international support. We do realize now that, and I think has been mentioned by Maria, that sometimes working together to design transnational programs gives you an opportunity to mobilize resources from the regional level, which resources you would not even be able to mobilize at the country level. So we are taking advantage of this, and we are at the Nile Basin Initiative level. We are developing a Nile River Basin investment program where we can all work together to be able to move forward together, but focusing on the benefits on the ground. And I do believe that with the support of the partners and with the collaboration of the countries, we'll be able to address these challenges. And we feel that partnerships and collaboration are the way to go, and we feel that we'll be able to address these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kalista. I appreciate the optimism. If we're able to join again online, Zaid, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
I would be happy to offer a couple of minutes. If I promised 5 to begin with, it's no longer that, and I deeply apologize. Let's try for 3 minutes in these responses towards the end here. Are you still with us, Zaid?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Kerry. Thank you so much. Are you hearing me? Sorry.
We hear you.
Yeah.
We hear you.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Okay. So actually, thanks for the UNDP, GF, SIDA, World Bank, and CampNet. Just in short, thanks. And also, I would like to emphasize the importance of the continuous of the importance of the shared water partnerships program that was been was mentioned by SIDA and financed with the cooperation of SIWI. I think we need to do more cooperation between both organizations in this term, and to implement more workshops, training programs, high-level meetings, especially with the high-level riparian countries representatives. I think it's very important in terms of emphasizing and fostering the dialogue between the countries. Dr. Thima Kamba also from the cabinet has mentioned something about investment in building capacity, and they're working with the ISQA in terms of need assessment into water education in Iraq. I would like to hear more about this. Actually, the ministry is keen to learn about more about this program. We will keep in touch maybe later through you. Actually, Astrid from Jeff was mentioned something about a grant for Iraq and blue diplomacy programs. This also is very important because actually Iraq is highlighting the importance of fostering and capacity building for actually the ministry staff and other ministries, not only the Ministry of Water Resources, even engaging the private sector, other related agencies in terms of enhancing dialogue between Iraq and the riparian countries, whether they're Turkey, Syria, or Iran as well. Also, I would say something about the World Bank, because Christina has mentioned something about technical system capacity building programs. I would like to hear more from our friends from the World Bank in Iraq. I understand that the World Bank also is only implementing some contracts implementing contracts for facilities, water facilities, and water infrastructure in Iraq. If there is more cooperation opportunities, the ministry is very welcome and very happy to learn more about that. I will not take a longer time. Thanks very much to you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Saeed. Last but not least of our country representatives, Abdullahi, Dr. Elmi, are you still with us? I'd like to offer
I am with you, Kerry.
Okay, we can hear you. I'd offer you the floor right now. The last 3 minutes are yours.
Thank you very much. I just want to say that Somalia has always been keen to cooperation with its upstream riparian countries of Ethiopia and Somalia over the shared river basins of Juba and Shabelle, as well as the transboundary groundwater resources. So, and we are still there. And Somalia also is also in need of building its capacity over this very important sector, thanks to SIWI, and who has been supporting us so many times to build our capacity in transboundary water management and diplomacy as well. So international organizations and donor communities are still needed to support the Ministry of Energy and Water Resources and the Somali government in general to build the capacity of this sector, which is also in our interest. So and the Horn of Africa region facing a lot of challenges, and this is another major challenges that we are seeing, and we are looking forward that the riparian countries of the Juba and Shabelle river basins cooperate over these shared water resources for the benefit of their people and citizens. Over.
Thank you so much. I hope everybody in the room can join me in a round of applause for our 3 panelists from Iraq, Uganda, and Somalia.
Thank you.
We're getting close to the end, so now I would like to welcome on stage our in-person rapporteur, Megan Stromberg. Megan is the Urban Resilience Program Coordinator and Research Analyst at the World Resources Institute, WRI. In this role, she conducts research on integrated urban water resilience planning and implementation in addition to nature-based solutions in cities with a climate adaptation focus. Hopefully you are hanging with us. This is maybe a little bit outside of Water for Peace for you, but hopefully you've been able to capture some reflections. And I also want to welcome and thank Evelyn Nabaka, who is going to provide our rapporteuring in written form for the session. Evelyn is a 28-year-old Ugandan woman with a bachelor's degree in ethics and human rights and a master's degree in peace and conflict studies. She's currently working for the NGO Eco Sanitary Uganda, focusing on WASH issues. And we're really happy to have both Evelyn and Megan joining us today. Megan, please share with us any key highlights or takeaways that you found from today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you first to all the speakers today for the really rich discussion. I was going to say, you can really tell it was an informative session when you fill up a whole notebook page of notes. Don't worry, though, I won't go through them all because my job here is just to summarize, so I'll keep it short. Today's session specifically was focusing on exploring the needs, challenges, and benefits towards water and peace, and we really did that. First, specifically, starting out with, in terms of the challenges, we heard that water has the power both to foster peace, but also to provoke conflicts. And with examples from Somalia, Iraq, and Uganda, some of these challenges we heard are that rivers are the lifelines for people, but rivers go across borders. So what does this mean in terms of preserving continuous dialogues with our neighbors across countries? And some of the key challenges that go across geographies include sanitation, management, development with growing populations, displacement with migration across countries, and challenges of institutional capacities when faced with the impacts from increased climate change. So with those challenges being addressed, I really heard speakers share the common theme of working together, cooperation. And so with this cooperation, a big part is around strengthening strategic partnerships and how can international organizations work with countries, work with local partners, work with communities on the ground to provide support. Some of the things that came out of these conversations were what about embedding cooperation within organizational processes as a first step. Also about providing guidance that is context specific, that's also across sectors and across levels. So bringing in multiple stakeholders within these conversations, bring in people that aren't typically in the same room together and build and strengthen those relationships. Finally, moving on from building relationships, we were able today to focus on what are the opportunities moving forward and how can we reflect with others on these conversations. I heard pieces on focusing on innovative financing mechanisms and how to bring new alliances into the space, particularly with the private sector on how to unlock this important innovative financing. These processes are all long-term, but there was a highlight that we need to focus also on the small scale and how to see tangible examples from community levels and use this to influence decision-making around cooperation. We also heard that we can really learn from each other and each other's initiatives. We heard 5 great initiatives presented today, and we really can strengthen the networks across these initiatives, projects, and conversations. And then there was also a focus on, of course, peer-to-peer learning, training the trainers, e-learning, and much more. So lots of opportunities ahead of us for such an important topic, and it's great that World Water Week can bring everyone together to keep this moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Before I give the floor to Dr. Mary Matthews for the final reflections and sending us off, I just want to say thank you on behalf of myself and CWE for everybody joining. I'm really proud of the group today. Again, I think it's Water for Peace is a difficult conversation to have. There's the tensions over water are well understood, and it can just be a very sensitive conversation, but it's an important one to have at the same time, and recognizing that there is this opportunity is something that I think we all need to recognize and try to learn in our own professional development, how to be better at making these connections. Thank you so much for doing that. Finally, I would like to welcome Dr. Mary Matthews back to send us off. Thank you once again, Mary, for bringing us together and organizing this with us.
Thank you so much, Carrie, and to all the speakers, because it really has been great to remember that this is one of the first times we've actually had this sort of session in all the years we've been doing this. And it's not because this isn't important, and it's not because this isn't extremely challenging. It's because it really is important, and it is very challenging. And I think one of the things that collectively this session has shown, that when you've got a really important challenge, the other side of that is an opportunity. And we're now at the juncture where we can turn these challenges that we know exist into opportunities, and really look at ways to move forward and do that together and do that collaboratively and learning from one another. I mean, honestly, 20 years ago, we couldn't have had 90% of the meetings, much less had everybody joining us online, that we have with us today. We're able to do things now that we couldn't do 5 years ago. So we're able to move forward, and we can learn from each other in entirely new ways, and we're seeing that happen. I think one of the things Carrie has definitely highlighted is the challenges of pulling this all together, getting it moving forward. There's some wonderful opportunities that we've seen where things are moving forward, and we need to continue to facilitate that. But it does bring me back to kind of Carrie's initial question, why haven't we done this before? And it's because it is so hard. But if it was easy, everybody would want to do it. So what our job is to figure out how to do it so well it does become easy. and it does become possible, and we are able to do this. We are not going to have substantially more fresh water available in the world. We probably are going to have a lot more people. We're going to have a lot more impacts of climate change. Folks, if we can't figure this out, I don't know who's going to do it. So it's got to be us. So let's get to work. Over. Thank you, everyone.
That concludes our session for today. Thanks again, everybody.